It's the Back Shift with your host for now, Stephen Hughes. Featuring singer-songwriter Becky Bourinot of Boogie's Corner.
Okay, so we're here with Becky from Boogie's Corner, and thanks for stopping by.
More than welcome.
At our new studio. Brand new
My
first.
pleasure.
You're going to do a song for us, are you? You and Francis?
Yes, my darling Francis.
Okay, nice, right on. And is this an old song or new song?
This is a new song that I just wrote, so it's just kind of in its youth.
Nice.
So we're working on it, and there's an arrangement going on, you know. I will be recording it here at Marcel's studio because Marcel is a large part of Boogie's Corner, and most certainly to get the right feel for a song, you have to have the right ingredients in the recipe.
Yeah.
And I kind of see music as being that. So if you add the right ingredients, you have the right recipe, and I feel that all the guys that I play with are definitely the right ingredients.
I would agree. I only met you probably a couple years ago now, and when I moved home, and I loved all you guys, you know, Nick and Marcel and everyone, and Rocky, obviously. I've become pretty close with Rocky, but I enjoyed, you know, getting to play a couple gigs with yourself and you guys. Marcel is a great energy on the bass. I love it, and he's kind of a showman, I would say. And
everybody has a different personality, which I think, you know, because I'm a person who believes it's a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
So as opposed to being somebody who just sits back and says, okay, well, these are the guys that just play with me, and this is who I am. I'm all about what every single person can bring to the table, and I give them artistic license, as I will and have been doing with this song, because I think that they know me well enough to know that I may think what they're playing, but I can't play what they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate every suggestion. So there's nobody, you know, that kind of goes unnoticed in that process.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm you know, I think I'm one of the luckiest people I know. So I have to say, you know, to have, you know, Francis and Rocky and Nick and Marcel, you know, it's a dream come true for most people.
Nice.
You know, I sort of like, you know, they have that dream team in the NBA.
Yeah.
They're my dream team. They
Just
are
a little
my
bit
dream
shorter.
team. Yeah, well,
except
you
for
know,
Stretch.
Well, except for Stretch. But I mean, yeah, but really and truly, I do believe that the team effort really pays off when you pay attention to what other musicians have to say, because they really have put in years and years of experience, and you have to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do respect them. There is no doubt that I have great respect for every one of those men. Yeah.
I suppose a lot of people don't think of, when you see someone just playing at a bar, playing songs, they don't think of all the years you've put into that specific instrument.
Right.
Like you're a specialist, basically, you know, like on the bass or the drums or guitar or lead guitar even, you know.
Yeah.
So it's, you have to kind of, you know, pick your team wisely.
And I like the different feel. Like sometimes, you know, because I have Francis and I have Nick, there's a different feel to the music. Francis is a true, you know, he's true to the tunes that he's playing, if they're cover songs. And he has so much you know, he's so authentic. What he brings to music is so authentic. So I'm fortunate to have him, and then I have Nick, who's a technical genius, I believe.
Yeah, and he's taught most of the people around here to play guitar.
Right, but you know, Francis and Nick have a rapport that only siblings can have.
Of course.
And because of that, you know, you'll hear harmonic guitars, which is something you don't generally hear. I'm very fortunate.
Well, it's a lot like when siblings sing together.
Well, my brother and I sing together, and it is that way.
Mm-hmm.
My brother and I can sing together. Maybe we sing together twice a year, and it sounds perfect. And people say, "Why don't you sing more often?" Well, he's not as comfortable as I am, and that's not his path, right? Mm-hmm. Although he can, and he does a very good job. He just, you know, he doesn't
take it as seriously, maybe.
It's not that he doesn't take it as seriously. He feels that, you know, he works. He's you know, he's got a good job. He's got a lot of responsibility that doesn't include music, but he always knows he has it to fall back on as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, he supports me in every way in that sense. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's the main thing, isn't it? Yeah. We should all be very supportive of each other, you know.
Well, we should.
Because it's not an easy path to,
everybody should be supporting each other. And sometimes I find that it becomes more of an id. And I don't like that whole notion that, you know, some singers especially, I find they're very, and I'm just, you know, I just don't pay attention to that, because everybody's got something to offer, whether they're just learning. You know, yes, I will say that, you know, he's sort of like a professional golfer playing with a novice sometimes, but, you know, you always learn something, and if you're willing to learn something from everybody that you sit and play with, you know, that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I went through that when I was probably 19, where I started playing the blues with older guys that were probably in their mid 60s. You know, and yeah, you kind of get looked at. You get looked at like you're just a little kid, and obviously now when I look back at it, I was. But then you kind of earn your stripes just by, you know, just playing consistently. You know, I guess, you know, a solid whatever you need, rhythm, you know, for whatever, and that's how you earn your stripes, just by putting in the hard work.
Yeah,
and
then the next kid comes along, and you're the older dude then, right?
Yeah, and so hopefully you are a little more sympathetic to their plight after you've went through it.
I find usually I've always become more sympathetic. I mean, when I was a young musician, I played, you know, we all learned at the same time, all me and my girlfriends, my friends, you know, and all of a sudden I was playing bar chords, and they were like, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Because I can." Well, they got angry with me for a while, and it was like, "Well, you're just not, you know, you're just trying to mess us up." And I would say, "Just play in the same key you always played it in. Just don't pay attention to me. This is just," but it was my interest. And as we got older, they finally say, "Now we understand." But when they were younger, they didn't. Like, it wasn't an understanding thing. You know, when all the guys that come in to jam and they saw the girls sitting there, you know, singing Kumbaya songs, they would probably, you know, most of the time they would kind of like go to the other room and kind of roll their eyes and wish the girls would get up and leave. Yeah. But when I was there, they'd always say, "Becky, why don't you stick back? You know, hang back." Because I was not exactly playing the way the rest were. I had a different musical interest. I was, you know, I had just different. It was a different train of thought.
And when you're younger too, you kind of have a whole other kind of thing going on where you're kind of. I think that I felt like when I was younger, I was a music snob. For me, it was like heavy music. If it wasn't heavy, it wasn't anything. And then you quickly, like, I'm talking when I was 16, 17, 18, you know, and then until you get exposed to new things, and then you can, you know, open your mind up and stuff. But when you're younger, even if it's not music, it's like anything. You have a different mindset of things, and things are so much more important to you, and that you think that everything is so, you know, life or death, when maybe it's not so much. Like, even like learning bar chords, oh my goodness, you know, why are you trying to, my life is over, my friend, I can't follow you on the guitar for a minute.
I think with me, it might have been a little bit of a different upbringing, only because my father was a musician. And he played with Robert Bouchard for years.
Oh, did he? What did he play with Robert?
My father was a bass player.
Oh, really?
And a piano player. So everything that I hear is in piano. Like, I hear bass notes in piano keys, so I kind of like the jazzy side of life, and I really love rockabilly, and I always loved bluegrass. But my father, around the house, listened to 3 specific groups, and one of them was ABBA. Now,
for someone who's really into country music, that's
it was odd.
Interesting.
He liked ABBA, but he also liked the Trogs.
Okay, yeah, well,
he loved to sing Wild Thing. There was something about the song that he really liked, and he also loved Les Paul and Mary Ford.
Oh my God. Well, they're amazing.
So I grew up listening, and he loved bluegrass music. So I grew up listening to an extremely large amount.
That's quite the diverse
of music. Yes, but my mother was a primarily country singer. My mother was the singer in the family, and all of her brothers and sisters sang, and every old Hank Williams song and Loretta Lee, all of those songs that I know are because I played them a million times in a kitchen at my grandmother's. I mean, that's why. But my father stretched my mind, and he would say, like, when I was trying to learn to play bass or even guitar, anything, my father played all of those instruments, and he'd come home off the road, and I'd say, "Look what I learned, Dad," you know, and I'd show him. He'd say, "Well, when you can play it like this, then come back and show me."
He'd challenge you to...
Well, that's the way he did it. I remember saying, "Well, Dad, I'd like to learn to play this song." He said, "Well, I think you should learn Country Roads because it has every chord in it except B." He said so, and he did, and I did.
Nothing wrong with being challenged.
So that challenge actually paid off, and as I got older, you know, I had the pleasure of making music with my entire family, because my brother, my father, and my mother, who I taught my mother to play the guitar, we all played together all the time. So it was kind of like a, you know.
That's really special. Yeah, to get to
so that's
share that with them.
And I've had that all my life. So as we branched off into different music styles, I had interest in all of them, and I still do, and I can incorporate that into things that I am interested in.
Yeah, I would say that when I've seen you play, your music is definitely, it's not just country music by any means. You're all over the place.
Oh, I love rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly, right. I love the version you do the letter. I like the letter.
I love all of that stuff. Right?
Yeah. Oh, and Venus, the Venus, I like that one.
Yeah, that is one of those songs. I figured it would become more recognizable again because of the Schick razor commercial.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so you and Francis are going to do a song for us, are you?
Yes.
Okay, and Francis is your...
My friend, my boyfriend, my common law spouse,
nice.
my honey. He's all
Keep
of
going.
those. He's all of those things. He's all
nice.
of those things.
And he's awesome on the guitar.
He is indeed.
Just met him a couple years ago when I moved back home, and I saw some videos you posted after and before I met him, and some of the little interludes, even the videos you posted, just from him sitting around at home, was just unbelievable.
He's incredible. He's an incredible musician.
Well, the whole family there, and Nick too is amazing. Yeah. And do you want to know the truth?
And Richard.
Don't tell Francis and Nick, but Richard, when I played with our band at the Rocky Bay Social Club.
Yeah.
Was that the gig when Richard played and everyone played?
Yeah.
Richard to me stole the show on the fiddle that day. That was unbelievable, and it was almost like a gypsy feeling to it.
Richard is remarkable because he turns all the instruments upside down and doesn't restring them.
Yeah.
Richard, and these men are all very different, but they're also the same in some ways. For me, it's kind of amusing to see Nick and Richard and Francis sitting around talking to each other and having a conversation while picking the most beautiful leads you've ever heard, and you're like, wow, like how do they do that?
Yeah.
Richard has a style all of his own, and he's a showstopper. The ladies love him. I don't understand.
I can see why.
He wiggles around or something.
He's alive.
And they love it. He is.
He's alive, and that's what struck me the first time I saw him play.
He is indeed.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I understand.
Wild. There's a wildness to it too.
Well, yeah, an untamable wildness.
And why would the women not like that?
Well, they love him because he loves to hug them, right? I've seen women.
Well,
I went to Rocky Bay one time, and I saw Richard stand. Okay, he said free hugs, and the ladies lined up, which I found really funny.
That's a great gag.
Well, it worked for him,
great gimmick.
man. Like
great gimmick.
It totally worked.
I'm gonna use that.
Oh yeah.
Free hugs.
Free
Perfect.
hugs.
Well,
and he stood there, and he went, and all the ladies just like.
I've heard of that before. The free hugs thing.
He's pretty good at it. Yeah.
Nice.
The China King Family Restaurant, located at 825 Reeve Street in Port Hawkesbury. The China King offers a full buffet all day. We specialize in Cantonese and Szechuan dishes, and we are licensed. We also deliver within town. And don't forget, you can always get the buffet to go.
This just in. Cape Breton to become 53rd state after an elite high-stakes poker game goes awry. In an annual secret high-stakes poker game that the United Nations hosts, new details are emerging that will change the face of North America. At the table were 8 leaders of the wealthiest nations and Bill Gates, but one hand in particular between 2 heads of the first world is making headlines. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and U.S. President Donald Trump were in a pot together when things started to heat up. Justin didn't bring enough money, and when he couldn't cover Donald's bet, he offered up a piece of land to match the discrepancy. Cape Breton. So when Justin turned over his full house with confidence, he was devastated when it was trumped by the straight flush of the Donald, conceding the quiet piece of oceanfront property. The future of Cape Breton is unclear, although rumors are now circulating of golf courses to be erected immediately through executive orders. General John Cabot Trail could not be reached for comment.
You're watching the Back Shift.
Well, I think that all the musicians that are playing, nobody should be playing for free.
Agreed.
I think that's ridiculous to even assume that our time isn't worth something. And what you're doing by asking musicians to play for free is you're telling them you're worthless. And what you're doing by playing for free is admitting that you think you are. So I'm not really up on that. I don't believe that there's anybody that's not worth something. Either you're worth the gas money to get there, or you're worth, but I am not playing for free anymore. It's just not happening, and I don't think that any of the groups should be, because it's setting a precedent.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's just get it straight. Let's just do this.
Yeah.
Enough is enough of that.
And it happens so much for bars. We're just like to play for the door, and then, in this day and age, so people go out to bars as much. But for certain kind of music, I find for country music, I find that's more of it gets people out dancing.
Yes, it
around
does.
here, around these parts
yes, it
anyway.
does. And then again, like I think I've mentioned to you before about time sharing. I think we should get a group together and decide to help each other get gigs in each other's towns. Because if you're a band from away, you're always popular. Your music is fresh and new. I don't want to listen to my own music over and over again in my local community because I've heard it so much. And they've heard it so much that I can see the boredom on their faces.
Yeah, exactly. I never heard it described like that. It's a great idea, a timeshare for bands
it's the truth, though.
and venues.
I'm more than willing to tell my friends that are in bands from away from here, and I do, about our local festivals and how to contact those people. And I do it quite frequently.
Even some of our friends in the city, I think, they probably get sick of playing around the city all the time themselves. Maybe
something different,
Yeah.
And it's sort of like you kind of have to be ready for any circumstance. I'm fortunate because I actually play with a group of such talented men that people can. Singers from other places can come in and use them as the world's largest karaoke machine, really.
Which they do, Sam Moon.
Which Sam Moon does that. John Matthews has done that there. And I've suggested it. I've also suggested to the local festivals, well, there it kills two birds with one stone, right? You've got a band that's local that can back them up, but you've got a different singer, so you've got options.
Well, there's precedents for that, where there should be like the telethons and stuff, had house bands, like those Christmas Daddies always had house bands. So it's it's doable, or it's foreseeable.
Yeah, it is, and I think that that's what needs to happen. We have to look at our treasures and treat them like treasures as opposed to driftwood. I'm really tired of watching that.
It's true, and I'm actually thankful for Rocky for taking his video camera around to some of these gigs.
Absolutely.
And I've got to see some gigs that I wasn't part of, but he brought them back, and to see all the talent that sometimes when you're playing gigs yourself, you don't get to go out to see other bands as much as you'd like to. So this is part of the parcel, and what I'm trying to create here is just a platform for other people to be exposed to other things. And maybe even musicians who aren't able to get out to see their friends play as much. This might be a.
Well, I've actually watched some of my friends in Toronto through live streaming, and I love it. I mean, I feel like I'm right there. It's like, oh, this is so cool. I remember when I was at that bar last, and I played with them. And it's really really cool. And I've done that, and I really enjoy that.
There's nothing better than live anything, really. I find it's not easy to do, so I kind of give a lot of respect whenever I see anything actually done live, even the live streaming.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
This is live, apparently. There's the phone. Nobody's home.
Anyway, that's I just think that it's time that we all stuck together and stuck to our guns, because there is not one person that plays a musical instrument that has put time in or has a love for music that shouldn't believe that music is the boss. Okay, music is the boss. It's not the people that run the nonprofit groups. They aren't the boss. Music is the boss. And if music is the boss and you're providing that service, you should be paid for it. Whether it be $50 for half an hour, whatever you decide. But there should be some sort of standard set. I mean, that almost sounds like a union. But
well, it sounds funny to think that when did it become a commodity that people weren't willing to pay for? That's a question.
Somebody said to me last year, and I have to quote her. My friend Norma said to me, "Why would anybody want to pay to see you guys when they can see you play for free at every benefit every weekend of the month?"
Yeah.
Isn't that a good question?
It's a very good question. Yeah.
Well, that's a great question.
And there's nothing wrong with doing benefits, you know, but I mean, you can only do so many of them, and there's only so much to go around, I suppose.
Well, I could be shot for saying it, but I'm going to say this. I have no issue playing for benefit dances. I support that. The idea of having music at a benefit in the middle of an afternoon drives me crazy because I don't see any reason for it. If you're having auctions and bake sales and all, there's really no reason for your musicians to have to stand there and wait and play, because there's nothing there. That nobody's making money off of that. Like nobody's benefiting from that.
Yeah, there's other things going on.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So that is just something, for example, where I think that has served to overexpose the musicians, right? I really believe that. So I mean, that's really what I feel. I feel that, you know, the local community unwittingly have helped along the process of making local talent obsolete, or not should say obsolete, makes them feel worthless.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like we're whining. It's just a reality. It's just a reality.
It is
it is a fact of reality that, you know, people in our vocation have to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not just here. It's seemingly like everywhere, and you can almost trace it back to like Napster, and when everything was downloaded for free, and you had the big artists like Metallica, and I can't think of anyone else right now who was labeled as whiners back in the early 2000s, and now look back in hindsight, they were right.
Yeah.
Even though they were like, you know, a wealthy group that were talking about, you know, wah, we're not making enough money, but you see the trend when some people want to stop paying for it. They, you know, it just becomes the record stores are gone, you know, everything, you know, that kind of thing, and it's happened. It's
I'm not really angry or bitter about it. To me, it's just a fact of life.
Yeah.
I mean, if you play the same song over and over and over and over again,
that would drive anyone nuts.
It becomes wagon wheel.
Yeah.
I feel that our groups have become wagon wheel. So it's a hard and harsh reality.
Harsh realities, yeah. I feel like I could get shot for saying that too. You
do not ever get a plumber to come to your house and do the work for nothing, unless you're like, you know, gonna give them, I don't know, an acre of land.
Yeah. Favors.
You know?
Favors.
But you know what I mean? Like you're not that is not acceptable. Music is a service. It doesn't really matter how you look at it. Yeah, it looks like fun, but it's work.
Unfortunately, I could get a musician over to my house much quicker than a plumber, which it's unfortunate because I'd rather a plumber actually. I could today. Yeah, it's right. You had some water problems today. Yeah.
But really, like I think you know, it's just we have to start picking and choosing what we do.
Yeah, well, when it's such an independent thing, there's the music union is almost, you know, it's not. You have to kind of forget. Almost at our level of things, you just forget that the union exists because it's just taking your money basically. But there should be some kind of unwritten rule for independent musicians. You know, not to play.
Stop undercutting each other.
Yeah.
Play nice.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if it seems to me that if everybody was charging, then there wouldn't be any of the then you can play for free. I'm not playing for free anymore. It's just not happening. No.
Yeah.
I can't justify it. You know.
Well, you're preaching to the choir here, so I guess it's.
I'm just not doing it. I like recording a lot. Like, I mean, that's kind of where I want to go, in the direction I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I love recording as well, and it's nice to document things and have records of what you've done. And
well, it's nice to give to your grandchildren.
Exactly.
I've got a bunch of those. Well, a couple.
Yeah.
So I mean, I really like to give them something, you know.
Yeah, things change once you kind of have kids, and the way you look at creating things, and just what you leave behind for them. Yeah. Yeah. After we.
I'll leave them my guitars, but I don't know if I'll have anything else if I keep playing for nothing.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah.
Really.
Exactly.
No, and it's not easy. It's just the principle.
Well, look, I guess you could say it's just the way that our vocation has gone lately. But I guess even when we were kids, you know, becoming musicians, we knew that there wasn't a lot of money. It's just like joining the NBA or wanting to join the NBA. The chances of becoming an NBA superstar is so minute. So the chances of becoming a rich popular musician is just the same odds. So it's good just to but there should be some kind of standards for the musicians that are more.
Well, you got to pay for your gas.
Well, for the masses, there's a lot more musicians. You don't even want to call them struggling. It's just working. There's a lot more working musicians than there are successfully financially.
There sure are. Yeah, and I know a lot of those people. I mean, well, of course, if you're a musician, you know other musicians.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. I love Cape Breton. I've been meeting all kinds of musicians.
This just in. Frankie McDonald and Cindy Day to snowball fight to the death. The strained relationship between Nova Scotia weather lady Cindy Day and Cape Breton's cult icon Frankie McDonald have come to blows today in the province's capital. Grand Parade Square was the setting for a no-hold-barred snowball fight to the death between the two public figures. This in the middle of one of the worst snowstorms in recent history. Despite rumors that CTV personality had precast ice balls, the two wasted no time in gathering ammunition, viciously attempting to abominate the other. After climbing atop the Britannia Cenotaph, it appeared that Day had the upper hand as Frankie had no cover. But, in a stunning turn of events, McDonald managed to knock Cindy Day off of the World War I monument with a rogue snowball, and as she lay injured, it would seem that the Cape Breton underdog would finish her off. He instead showed mercy, sparing her, and spoke two words that echoed through the square. It's over. Peter Code could not be reached for comment.
You're watching the BACKSHIFT.
My first influence, oddly enough, I lived across the street. My grandmother lived across the street from Marcel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how I knew Marcel, since I was young. And at that time, Marcel was playing in a band with Nick, Fred Highland, and Glenn Gotel. who currently runs the music store in Antigonish. And, of course, Fred Highland still around. You know, we all know Fred
Oh, yeah.
is. And I remember the first time I ever heard live music. It was coming out of Marcel's father's shed. And I was drawn to it. I remember sitting out on the doorstep at my grandmother's house, and I couldn't stop listening to it. And people were calling me to go in for supper. And my father finally came out. He said, "Why are you not eating supper?" And I said, "I want to know what that is." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what. I'll walk you across the street. You go up to that shed, and don't you bother those musicians. You stay away from them. You just watch them."
Don't get too close to the musicians.
Well, no, because he didn't want me to bother their practice.
Sure, yeah.
So I went, and I poked my head around the corner of the shed. Marcel was playing lead guitar. Nick was the bass player.
Oh, really?
Glenn Gotel was playing drums, and I think he was actually singing at that time, and he was singing Manic Depression. That was the name of the song.
Not the Jimi Hendrix song?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. And I was only 8. I remember Marcel saw me, and he kind of put his hand up for everybody to stop, and I thought, oh, I'm in trouble. Instead, he got the chopping block, the wood chopping block, and he sat it down. He said, "Here, you can sit there." And he brought it inside, and I sat there, and I watched all of them, all for the rest of the day.
Nice.
And that was my first taste of music.
It kind of got you hooked a little bit, just even
so
to...
as you can see, what a thrill it must be for me.
Yeah, where you're playing with some of these
I mean,
some of these same guys.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So nothing has changed. I still have the same.
Well, those are a great group of guys, I must say. Since I moved back home, I'm just feel fortunate to have met, through Rocky and yourself, Nick and Francis and Richard.
I have never gone into a room where there are musicians without sitting back and listening first to see if I will do them justice. Because if I can't do them justice by singing a harmony line or playing along with them, I'm not going to. I'm just not going to. I would prefer, to have respect enough for that person and that individual not to do that. Right?
There's nothing wrong with knowing your limitations.
You have to go. You don't put your foot out into traffic, and that's just, I've had lots of instances where people do that, and it never bodes well for them in the long run. With me, anyway.
Well, I guess you'd have to applaud, say, their ambition or their energy to get up and to want to be part of things.
Yeah.
But that's about it, I guess.
That's right.
That's about it. I mean, I remember when we were a band in high school. I had a band, and we moved to Halifax, and we lived like a block away from the frat house, and there was a band playing there, and we actually became very good friends with them. But the way we met was, I went up to the band in between songs and said, "Hey, I have a band that's like a block away. Can we come and play, in between your sets or whatever, And they let us. But that's like that's like the thing you don't do.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing you could do is kind of go up. I was literally 16 years old.
Well, then,
and you go up, and I guess that's where you'd have to say, where you could just kind of, it's just commendable energy, I guess, or the confidence at that age especially. I would never think about that now.
No, and the thing is that some people surprise you when they do that.
Sure.
I've had many occasions where people will come up to me, "Oh, can I sing a song?"
And most times you say yes.
And never.
You never say yes?
No.
Oh, you're stronger than I am.
No, I won't.
Or stronger than people I've seen.
I'll usually blame it on the hall I'm playing in and say they don't allow that here.
That's awesome. See, this is why I respect your assertiveness. I love it. I love that. I wish I could just take a little bit of that.
Somebody came up to me not too long ago at a dance we were playing at. Young fella, and he had a drink in his head, and he was really hammered. He came up and he said, "Can you play Wagon Wheel?" And I said, "No, I can't. I can't, and I'm not going to, and I won't."
Yeah,
and I said,
that's
even
on
if
that
I knew
list.
it, I would not.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the song. And I don't think that I could do it. He said, "You need me to teach you?" I said, "Oh, no." I said, "But I could teach you to try to stand up straight instead of wobbling around with that drink in your hand, because I do have the power to have you thrown out of the bar, right?"
Yeah.
And I mean, then I just kind of changed his mind and said, how about some, Bob Seger? And he was good with that. But
Yeah.
still, it changed his mind. But I don't tolerate too well that kind of stuff. Like,
Well, when you spend a lot of time playing in bars, it's something that you kind of you have
see
less
it's
and
gonna
less
happen, yeah.
tolerance
I have
for that
very
kind of
little
thing.
tolerance for that.
So it might sound like you're a little cold about it, but you'd have to be in that situation enough times that you
well,
understand.
there's nothing worse. There's no better way to kill a party than allowing that to happen. You know, you'll be up there, like you're jamming, you're playing blues, you're playing rock and roll, and all of a sudden somebody comes up and says, "Can I sing Celine Dion?" No, you can't.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can't. You know, so that's the kind of thing. I mean, I'm pretty blunt. There's no doubt about that, and I've been called many other names, but oh, whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly right. What's it called?
Guilt Trip.
Guilt Trip, a
Yeah.
new song.
It is a new song. I wrote it relatively quickly. It was one of those 15-minute songs.
Nice.
That doesn't happen often. I have a bunch of others on the back burner, but Guilt Trip is one of those songs that it just seemed that everybody knew right away. For some reason, I played it, and it was like, ooh, there it is.
Perfect. Yeah, sometimes things just feel natural.
Right. Yeah.
No,
and
that's
we all have a habit of even if we've never played a song before, we have performed them on stage without ever playing them before, and we have a feel for each other, the group, that we stop and start at the same time, which is kind of interesting. I don't know how they read me so well, but I stop, they stop. It's
Well, that's part of the being in a band, is keeping your eyes open for each other, and
it's
but,
wild. Yeah.
But when you've been playing with the same people for so long, it does become second nature.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I've known Marcel since I was a little tiny girl, right? So, I mean, I've known Marcel since I was born, really. Nick and Francis later on in life, Richard later on in life, Rocky later on, but when he was a teenager, I knew him.
Yeah.
He hasn't changed a whole lot.
Well,
Driven, you know.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Very
Actually,
driven and talented human. Yeah.
Well, he's become my best friend. When you're a bass player, you have to find a drummer.
Well, that's the rhythm section. The bass
Right.
player. The bass is the velvet carpet that the rest of the band walks on.
Oh my goodness! Did you hear that?
That's what Dad
I love it.
always said. That's what Dad always said, and
your dad was a bass player.
Yeah, and I totally
It sounds like something a bass player would say.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. I understood exactly what he meant when he said it, and I've used that.
My friend Rob, rest in peace, who was a very good friend of mine, he played saxophone in one of my bands. He always used to think when he was younger, he said that he thought that the bass was a tree, like a wood. He always called it the log. In the bass, but it's because when he was the music he listened to was all rockabilly, and 57 was all stand-up bass. So it actually, you do get that wood kind of slap or crack feel. So I always thought that was amazing. I never really kind of thought that or heard of that until he mentioned it, that he always called it the log, the bass.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Well, let's get you and Francis here to play Guilt Trip.
Right on.
And we'll come back and I'll tell you how awesome that was.
Right on. Hey, Francis? Pack my bags, I'm going on a guilt trip. Don't point your finger in my direction. I'm sick and tired of putting up with your lip, honey. Pack my bags, I'm going on a guilt trip. No matter what I do or say, you keep nagging me. You don't trust a single word I say. You want to know where I've been, who I'm talking to. We just can't keep going on this way. Pack my bags, I'm going on a guilt trip. Don't point your finger in my direction. I'm sick and tired of putting up with your lip, honey. Pack my bags, I'm going on a guilt trip. If you don't have some faith in me, stop your speculation. Our love affair is all but dead and gone. Your jealous mind will be the end. By my calculation, I'll be up and out of here by dawn. Pack my bags, I'm going on a guilt trip. Don't point your finger in my direction. I'm sick and tired of putting up with your lip, honey. Pack my bags, I'm going on a guilt trip. You're acting Accusations break my heart and there's no consolation. Things I do that bother you are your imagination. Please believe me, honey, you're the only one for me. But if you have no faith in me, you have to set me free. Pack my bags, I'm going on a guilt trip. Don't point your finger in my direction. I'm sick and tired of putting up with your lip, honey. Pack my bags, I'm going on a guilt trip. I'm sick and tired of putting up with your lip, honey. Pack my bags, I'm going on a guilt trip.
This just in. Newest movie rehash breaks new ground with casting choice. In an age where movie remakes and rebranding are becoming frequently marketed towards groups that raise concerns about a lack of exposure in the mainstream of popular culture, comes a movie pandering to yet another so-called underrepresented peoples. The Three Amigos was a beloved comedy starring Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short. A seemingly innocent movie that flew under the radar of the modern politically correct culture until now. Rewatching The Three Amigos in the current year, highlights a lack of diversity and a bias that is hard to imagine would be allowable today. The fact that Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short are all average or of above average height shows an insensitivity to short people everywhere. Martin Short is now being coined a token shorty, but at 5'7" is also being questioned if he falls into the category at all. Some say his very name is a mockery to the diminutive community. And with most groups that cause a stink, it appears the vertically challenged persons are going to get their way. Hollywood studios have announced plans to release a new Three Amigos starring a more suitable cast. Joe Pesci, Danny DeVito, and the neighbor from The Cosby Show will star in this revamped classic, which will be released shortly. Randy Newman could not be reached for comment.
Short people got nobody. Short people got nobody to love.
You're watching The BACKSHIFT.
Rolling. Do they still do that with the clappers?
I think they do.
I think they do. Well, that was awesome, Becky. That was a great little number there, Guilt
you.
Trip. I always love it too when the song is so new, because freshness, I find, is important with music. When things are fresh and you're not sick of it.
Well, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
Yeah, it's very easy to get sick of songs.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
There are some songs I won't sing because I'm sick of them and I've never even learned them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I think
I've had some friends that said that they have a list of songs they just won't
well,
do.
yeah, I'm kind of at the, I've got a few on my list there that, no, never again. One in particular, and I know it's a common song among musicians.
You don't have to name names.
You don't
worry,
have
won't
to. Everybody's going to know.
Yeah, you got the wagon wheels, the
That's the
brown-eyed
one,
girls.
that's the
you
one
know?
right
I
there,
nailed
that's
it.
the
Do I win a
one.
prize?
Oh, you win the prize. Wagon wheel wins the prize. Yeah.
I would like to win an actual wagon wheel because they taste good. So the song, it's unfortunate the song is kind of overplayed and overdone, because wagon wheels as a treat is
Right.
good, but not as a song.
It might have been at one time good as a song,
Sure.
but only once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you playing anywhere out here soon?
Where am I playing soon? I have a gig coming up with Sam Moon.
Oh yeah?
All of us are going to.
Where to?
Oh, it's a private function, so we can't get into that.
Private function. Pardon me. That's awesome. Well,
I know that I have some stuff coming up, but I can't really think about it at the moment.
you can just say it's stuff I'm not allowed to talk about right now. It's all tied up in legal legalities.
Stuff I'm not allowed to talk about. That sounds fine. It sounds better than stuff I can't remember.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd
wow.
have to look at my calendar for that one. Yeah.
Well, I would just suggest to anybody that sees this and then hears of Becky playing anywhere with Boogie's Corner, they should go out and check them out because some of the finest musicians in that group, bar none.
Yeah, we've actually been playing off of Cape Breton a little bit.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, we did a sold out dance the other night in the Liscombe Legion
Oh,
in
okay.
Guysborough County. It was fantastic.
Nice.
They
Do you know what?
danced-
I think we have some footage of that we might show.
They danced from the first song to the last song. They never stopped, and they were troopers.
Nice.
Older, younger, they all danced together. It was the coolest night. Rocky did some singing that night. That
Oh, did
was
he?
Really cool.
Do you know, I love Rocky's voice, and it reminds me of something like from the band. You know the band?
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of like a little rough.
Yeah, but I really
love it.
appreciated it. I thought it was great, and so did the people. They were all like, my mother fell in love with Rocky's voice.
I love the rasp. He's good for country music.
Well, hey, I thought, and I was really pleased because it gives me a little bit of a break.
Break, of course.
And I had Richard there, of course. And,
Oh, is he there?
Yeah. Like sometimes it really depends on who's available at the time, right? I mean, sometimes Francis is home and sometimes he's not.
Yeah, he's on the road. He's trucking.
Sometimes Richard is home, or with us. Sometimes he's not. It really depends, right? The only thing that I don't like to give up on is my core group. Without Marcel and Rocky and Nick, it would be very difficult. Well, it just doesn't feel the same.
No, that's a good. I mean, if you have those three guys, you're pretty much set. You can just play a gig.
Yeah, I can, but I prefer. It's like my recipe.
Yeah, exactly.
My magic recipe.
Sometimes you want, a little more Nick than a little more, Marcel.
And even playing by myself is not something that I enjoy doing as much as I used to because I think I'm over the kitchen party type, sitting around the table screaming at the top of your lungs.
Next day,
Every
you can
time I
feel
go to a house party, I take microphones with me now because it's like, okay, I'm not screaming. I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah.
So
it's just white noise.
Well, it is.
And you can't
It is,
sing
and you
over
tend
that.
to play your guitar harder, and you're not really making it any louder. So you're just breaking your strings, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyway, that's about the size of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, right on. Well, we'll. I think what we'd like to do in the future too is get you guys. We'll record you guys
Oh, sure.
playing live here, and
Anytime.
yeah, we'll mic up
Yeah.
the drums and the bass and the guitars, get all the full meal deal going.
Yeah, anytime.
But it's a good first step anyway, just to.
Right on. Well, thank you for asking me to do this.
My pleasure.
Yeah.